Former governor of Zamfara, Senator Sani Yerima, tells President Bola Tinubu to negotiate with bandits in the northwest region to tame the insecurity situation in that place. And the president has asked the new service chief to work together as a team and task them on their duties and roles he assigned to them, the very first time he's meeting with them since their appointments. Hello everyone, welcome to the program. This is Politics Today live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimbaloe in Abuja. Tonight is going to be so much about security. Can a governor in Zamfara State, who's experienced a lot of this insecurity while he was governor of that state in that northwest region, prefer a solution as negotiating with repentant bandits? Can that advisory or that kind of proposal stand in the face of what the nation is facing at the moment? This is one of those things that he told President Bola Tinubu today. Can Nigeria negotiate with this violent extremist? We'll be dissecting all of these issues. Now, the very first time that the service chiefs will be meeting with President Tinubu, he has told them what he wants from them. He said he wants synergy, for them to share intelligence. These are some of the requirements, some of the things he has tasked them on today. There are immediate need for the president to take action on some insecurity situation in the country. What is he doing about it? How is he going to go about it? How do we douse some of these insecurities and the tension in the land? We'll be hearing from experts and very highly placed Nigerians tonight on the program. So stick around with me, everyone. Plus also reactions coming from the presidency on the outcome of the election and the European Union's comments and report on the 2023 election, especially the election that saw President Bola Tinubu emerge as the president of Nigeria. Some of these issues will get our attention tonight. So brace up, everyone. But first and foremost, let's check out your political roundup stories.
The planned commencement of defense by the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) before the presidential election petition tribunal was stalled due to the absence of its first witness. INEC, which is the first respondent to the petition by the Labour Party and its presidential candidate, was scheduled to open its defense today. At the resumed hearing, counsel to INEC, Abubakar Mahmood SAN, told the court that he planned to call 3 witnesses within 3 days, but the one slated for today was unavailable due to domestic issues. He subsequently applied for an adjournment till Tuesday to enable the witness to attend court. Counsels to other parties did not object to the request by the INEC's counsel. President Bola Tinubu today met a delegation from Shell Petroleum Development Company at the State House in Abuja. The Group Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company (NNPC) Limited, Mele Kyari, as well as the Chief of Staff to the President, Femi Gbajabiamila, were also at the meeting. At the meeting, the President assured the business community of his government's commitment to policy consistency and better business climate to attract investment. Tinubu welcomed the company's offer for more investment in the Nigerian oil and gas sector, adding that such investments are needed now more than ever to enable government to meet its obligations. A supplementary budget of 200 billion naira has passed second reading in the Rivers State House of Assembly today. At the plenary, the House refutes allegations about lack of transparency on the part of the state government. The House Majority Leader, Honorable Edison Ehie, while answering questions from journalists on the alleged lack of fiscal transparency from the Rivers State government, Ehie described the allegation as untrue, noting that the state's finances are in the public domain for all to access. The Inter-Party Advisory Council (IPAC) has raised alarm over alleged mandatory payment and extortion of the sum of 54 million naira by the Imo State Signage and Advertisement Agency (IMSA), a statutory levy to be paid by opposition political parties and their candidates to display and disseminate their campaign messages in Imo State ahead of the November governorship elections. Speaking on behalf of the G12 IPAC members, led by the chairman, Mr. Uchendo Ahaneku of the Action Alliance, he said the action by the Imo State government contravenes the provisions of the Nigerian Constitution Constitution and Electoral Act, and a calculated attempt to cripple the campaign activities of opposition political parties by barring them from conveying and selling their political manifesto to Imo people through the IMSA restrictions.
We haven't seen this kind of thing before. It has never existed anywhere in Imo State. It has never existed anywhere in Imo State since 1999.
Thank you so much, everyone. There you have it. You've been served with your political roundup stories. Now, let's begin our conversation. It's about, majorly tonight, how Bola Tinubu, who is in the saddle, is able to unite this country and able to keep this nation secure, because it's one of the things that he campaigned for. And in fact, he's the one who has said, don't pity me. I asked for it. I campaigned for it. I requested for it. So tonight, we'll be looking at those areas related to security based on the events of today. Let's begin with the former governor of Zamfara State, Sani Yerima, who has suggested that President Bola Tinubu should first engage the use of dialogue with bandits rather than military force as the best way to address the insecurity challenge to resolving insurgency in the country, especially the issue of banditry. Senator Yerima gave the suggestion today while speaking with State House correspondents after a courtesy visit to the president. Senator Yerima said the immediate past government failed in negotiating with the bandits and was of the opinion that if the federal government waits in and begins the negotiation with the bandits, the country will record advanced progress like was experienced with the Niger Delta militants. Let me allow you to listen by yourself, to Senator Yerima.
The issue of Zamfara, like you rightly said, I'm now a father in Zamfara. And even Mr. President, in my interaction this morning, or this afternoon, has requested me to put my best to ensure that there is stability in the state. And that is what we are doing already. And by the grace of God, we will come together and you see that all the crises that are going on will be over. And I keep on saying that the best way to go about these bandits, handling the issue of bandits, should be introduction of dialogue first. But as I said, if that fails, then the government will go all out to eliminate them. Why I say we should start discussing with them is to avoid the collateral damages that may come up if intensive and extensive military operations are directed. But that should be the last option. You look at World War I and World War II. The wars were not ended in the battlefield. They were ended on the table. They had to negotiate. So negotiation is part of governance. Once you negotiate with your enemies, you will end up pleasing them. Some of them, like I said, the reason for doing it are two: ignorance and poverty. So what you need to do is to identify what you can do to salvage these people and make sure that they are reintegrated back into society.
That's Senator Sani Yerima. He's a former governor of Zamfara State who also represented Zamfara State in the National Assembly as a federal lawmaker. Well, after that, today is the very first time President Tinubu will be meeting service chiefs since the appointment. The president met with the new service chiefs and has asked them to work as a team, underscoring that there is work to be done. The president said to the service chiefs that when he met them alongside with the National Security Advisor and Bado and the new service chief for the first time, he said that they should work together, and he has given assurances that if they work together, the task will be done. The NSA conveyed the president's assurances to the service chief, and they have his unwavering support. That is the commitment they said they extracted from the president. Let me allow you to listen to the NSA, Uhuru Badu.
Well, we are here to thank Mr. President for the opportunity he gave us to serve our country and to serve his own government. We thank him very much. We also pledge our loyalty to him and to Nigeria and Nigerians. We believe that the choice he made is the right one, the correct one. And we know what he wants for this country. We are going to work tirelessly to ensure that we accomplish that objective of securing our country, establishing peace, stability, and let's get our lives back. He gave us the assurance that he is with us 100%. He told us that we must work as a team, and there is a work to be done. He will expect us to deliver. And you can see already things are improving in our country. If you see the record of crimes and activities of the criminals, it's going down. It will continue to go down. We will secure this place. Nigerians have seen the quality of people that are given opportunity. They are probably some of the best we have, and they are not going to fail you.
Sharing what's there. If this country is secured, it'll be good for everyone, isn't it? So let's get talking about how these dreams or these promises can be achieved. Well, this is not the first time we are hearing promises from those who have been appointed into office. And no, nobody here is a naysayer, and nobody here is a pessimist. But look, we need to look at and assess what has been done. In the past, we've seen it, we've heard it, but things have gone wrong. Let's look at what has been said today and look at the task at hand. To discuss these issues, I have two experienced personalities, a retired group captain in the Air Force, Group Captain Sodiq Shehu joins us live here in our studio. He's being to several operations across this country, one of those valiant and very agile military officers coming out of the Nigerian military. Thanks so much, Group Captain, for joining us.
It's a pleasure, sure.
And I have a scholar whose major attention is on extremism in Nigeria and in Africa. Mr. Bulama Bukati, who is also a lawyer. Thank you so much, my friend, Mr. Bukati, for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Shaun.
I appreciate it. Let's begin first and foremost. We'll begin from what Senator Yerima has said. And I want to assume that you know him very well. And there are a lot of people who are drawn a history of banditry, especially in Zamfara. There are a lot of people who say, well, if it's within that corridor, that the problem of banditry started to spread around the northwest region. Well, Senator Yerima and the issue of banditry, if he speaks, is it the kind of person we should listen to?
Well, having been the governor of Zamfara State, you know, when the banditry started, he's in a position to be listened to as to what he said. But again, each person will have his own experience. He was the governor. I think if I had the full interview, you know, he said he had success of negotiating with the bandits during his time. And that's why he thinks that the governor that came after him did not succeed in the negotiation. That is the experience of Sani Yerima Bakura when he was governor. However, again, in discussing this banditry issue, we've heard other governors in the Northwest, like the governor of Katsina, who have had their own experience of trying to negotiate with these bandits. What do we hear from him? We hear him talking in English and Hausa that the greatest mistake he's made was to even attempt negotiation with these bandits, that they are men of no honor. So you see, we have two experiences to look at. By and by, I agree with some of the things that Governor Sani Yerima Bakura said. First, he talked about if there is sustained military action, there is danger of collateral damage. That is actually true, because the bandits are intermingled with the people. I also agree with him if he says the problem has some element of poverty in it. But when he tried to make the comparison between the bandits in the Northwest and the Niger Delta agitators, here I might slightly disagree with him, because the motivations of the two different groups was not the same. When we had the Niger Delta militants, whether it is a ruse or not, We had them talking that they are protecting their environment, they are protecting their people, they are fighting against government and oil prospecting companies, which they believe damage the accommodation. Well, to some extent, you might listen to these arguments. And most importantly, we do not hear the Niger Delta bandits attacking their own people.
Could you have called the Niger Delta militants bandits?
That is
so Senator Yerima is wrong on that grounds.
On that grounds to equate, yes.
To say,
we never heard of the bandits, the Niger Delta militants attacking their own people. Rather, in fact, the Niger Delta people at a time saw them as heroes, protecting their interests. What do we have with the bandits? The bandits are attacking the people that are of the same stock with them, the people that are living with them. They are carrying their daughters. They are putting, taxes for them to farm and everything. So I would not like to equate the motivations of the bandits and the motivations. I see in the bandits pure criminality. That is what I see. Whereas from the Niger Delta, no matter how you disagree with them, you see element of protecting their own people or the interests of their own people. They were not preying on their people. The bandits in the north are preying on the people, taking them hostages, taking their daughters turning them to wives and all that.
That's the premise I want us to start first and foremost. Okay. Identity of these persons.
Exactly.
Let's profile them first and foremost. And there are those, correct me if I'm wrong, from what we read and from what we know and what we hear, that these elements, this bandit element operating in part of Kaduna, operating in Sokoto, operating in Zamfara, in part of Niger State, they have been infiltrated. In fact, there are those who will say in part of Plateau State, the governor had come here to say that, look, these guys don't even speak any language familiar in Nigeria. They speak languages spoken outside of Nigeria. So if that is the case, is it true from your own intelligence that you have about the profile and the identities of these bandits?
Yes, from what we are seeing now, the bandits is an amalgam of different kinds of people. Some resident in the area, locals, and then also whenever there is, you have to understand also there's also the issue of gold prospecting, illegal gold mining in that area.
In Zamfara especially?
In Zamfara State. So wherever you have illegal gold mining, it's a place, even if it is a town that is a mining town, even in the days of the cowboys, it's a place where you have a conglomeration of criminals coming in. So I agree with the fact that we have infiltrators coming, whereas maybe the original people that started the banditry, they are locals within the area. But the area has become ripe now. You take cattle, you do illegal mining, you do cattle rustling, you do kidnap for ransom, and all sorts of things.
In fact, we understand now they collect taxes to protect some communities.
Yes, we see, again, you come to the issue of ungoverned spaces. Where there is no government, of course, they will install their own kind of governance in that area, which is what is feeding on that, the banditry in that area. It's ungoverned spaces with lack of government presence. So in the lack of government presence, the people have no option than to surrender. Not all of them can run away. They have their farms. So if you have to stay and then you can pay some protection money, you pay protection money. Yeah.
For someone that has used, I'm going to go to Mr. Bukati now. For someone like you that has used stick very well, as a military officer, would like to know your view, because that's one area that the former governor also went into, whether or not we should use the stick or just throw them the carrot. Just give me a moment. Okay. Let me get the view of Mr. Bukati. You are a scholar. You've researched very in-depthly about this element. What do we know about these? Because I want us to identify them, and then also look whether or not the suggestion of Governor Yerima is tried or not in the sense of negotiating with them. Whether we can just throw them the carrot or just use the stick and clear them out. Like Governor El-Rufai has said, that we should go to the bushes and just clear them out. What do we know of them?
Look, Shaun, like you said, I have researched this issue of bandits as well as other crises very well. And I was the executive producer in the Bandit Warlords of Zamfara, the investigative video or documentary that was released by BBC Africa last year, which was, made by Yusuf Anka. I was the executive producer on that. And in that process, I got to understand very well what is motivating the bandits and their activities. If we looked at it historically, we could say the bandits in Zamfara did have some socio-economic grievances at the time they started, whether it's lack of access to grazing land or marginalization or perceived marginalization and stuff like that. But we know that over the past 8 years or so, these elements have transitioned from people who had some socio-economic or political grievances into full-blown criminals who attacked innocent individuals, killed thousands and thousands of Nigerians, and destroyed hundreds of villages using terroristic methods. And if you looked at the Terrorism Prevention Act in Nigeria, what they did is terrorism, and that's why the federal government sought a declaration from the Federal High Court, and the Federal High Court declared them terrorists. And therefore, we are talking about terrorists. Let's stop even calling them bandits. They are terrorists. Maybe we'll only call them bandits because there are many different terrorist groups in Nigeria. Now, Senator Sani Riman Bakura is a respected figure in northern Nigeria and in Zamfara state in particular. He was a governor, he was senator, and he has represented his people in different forums. So we cannot say he is coming to this from a position of ignorance. But what we can say for sure is that he is not coming to this as a position of an expert or an analyst, because if he was an expert or an analyst, he wouldn't call for negotiation or for dialogue, because dialogue or negotiation implies sitting, around the table and conversing with the bandits or the terrorists and giving them something in order to get something from them. It's like a compromise, and that's not how to deal with them. The way to deal with them is to start with the stick, because Yarima suggests that we start with the carrot, give them an opportunity to defect or to repent. If they don't, then go all in with the military effort. We have tried that before. It did not work. What you need to do is to go hard on the military side of things, and then after you have used enough military power on them, you may then open the door, not for negotiation, but for amnesty, because you don't negotiate with terrorists, you don't negotiate with criminals. What you do is to allow those of them who want to repent to lay off their arms and turn themselves into authorities. And then you profile them, and you consult community members, you consult experts, you consult our security agencies, and then you now decide whether to prosecute them or to follow the procedure laid down by experts to demobilize them properly, rehabilitate them, and then reintegrate them back to communities. That's the process. It is not about negotiation. It is not about dialogue. It is a question of using military force against them for them to know that Nigeria has the might to crush them, and then you allow them to defect and repent and turn themselves into authorities if they want to.
All right. Now, we have a scholar in the building, and we have a man who's used his stick properly on the field. So we'll be getting a mix of that. Very quality personalities discussing this issue on the program tonight. But Mr. Bukati, please help us. Can we say for sure that we know these bandits, the terrorists like you call them? Because, I mean, it's good to identify them as bandits. So when we're talking about the terrorists in the northeastern region of the country, we call them Boko Haram. And there are those also who are carrying arms and violent attacks on Nigerians in some part of the country. So it's good to distinguish, at least for this, for the sake of this discussion. Now, can we say we know these bandits?
Yes, we know them, and Zamfara state politicians know them. The federal government and our intelligence agencies know them. They know their leaders. For example, Ado Aleru was someone who was tracked by BBC Africa and was interviewed on camera. Everyone saw the bandit warlords of Zamfara. We have people like, Turji. Bello Turji is a renowned personality in northwestern Nigeria because of his terroristic acts. And there are a host of them. You could say there are many.
Dogo Gudali, Dogo Gide, Dogo Gudali.
There are just countless. Dogo Gide is someone whose name we know, whose voice we know, who is on camera. And there are a host of others like Sani Dangote, Gajere. There are many of them, like I said. And I mean, the leaders in particular are identifiable. And once you arrest them or you track them down, you are able to track their group. They are not even hiding their faces anymore. They are ringing into media agencies to give interviews. They are releasing videos to demand for ransom. They are threatening people on camera, on audio, and therefore we cannot claim that we don't know them. And in particular, Zamfara politicians who have negotiated with them know them. That's why they gave them amnesty. Katsina State politicians know them because they have negotiated with them, with some of them in the past. And the federal government should know them because our intelligence agencies have their names, they have their faces. And like I said, the method that they have used is terroristic. And like the group captain has said, if someone attacks innocent civilians with impunity in horrific attacks, you don't then treat them as people who have socio-economic or political grievances, like, I mean, insurgents or rebel groups who generally respected laws and did not attack civilians.
I mean, you are one person that told me on this program that there are dimensions into what some of these terrorists are now deploying. Technology, using Turaya, satellite telephones, and it's a bit difficult to be able to track that. They are in fact using drones to remotely now carry out their attacks. That means that there's some kind of funding and sophistication coming into play. There are those, I mean, and I'd like to quickly extract this from you quickly, and it's the fact that do we have what it takes to track these people? Do we have the satellite enablement? Do we have the remote tracking enablement, the digital and the latest technology to be able to track these people? That is on one hand quickly, because that's going to lead me to my next question.
No, the first point I will make, Sean, is that we should not deceive ourselves that it is easy to track and to fight and to defeat them. If it was easy, past governments would have succeeded in doing that. But what I can tell you for sure is that it is not impossible to track them. Because, for example, we know that the Nigerian security and intelligence agencies are capable of tracking people using their SIM cards. And we know that these bandits are using SIM cards. In the bush, they call parents, they negotiate with parents for weeks, and we know that parents have reported them. We know that school proprietors have reported them and their phone numbers, but those phone numbers that have been used for months, sometimes for years, have never been tracked and them arrested. Secondly, everyone in Zamfara knows the bush where these bandits are hiding. Everyone in Katsina knows the bush, the area where these bandits are hiding. And therefore, we should understand that, of course, they are hiding in jungles. Of course, they are trying to evade security agencies, but it is not impossible for us to deploy technology and to use human intelligence in order to track them and to crush them. It is not impossible. They are not, living in the sky or somewhere where they can disappear. They are living in the jungle where people know, people in Zamfara can point you one by one, every bush, every area where the bandits are lurking. People in Kaduna can show you that, and people in Sokoto and Katsina can also show you that. So it is just a matter of using basic intelligence. Where is the intelligence our security and law enforcement agencies are using to track SIM cards of people who, who say negative, who criticize politicians? For example, we know of a boy who criticized the wife of the former president, and he was tracked to his university and was maltreated by our security and law enforcement agencies. And if they can use that, they can use people's SIM card to track them. They can use the SIM card bandits are using to negotiate with parents and proprietors of schools and churches and mosques in order to track them and to bring them to book. Right. But they can also use human intelligence. They can use their air power, the jets we have bought in order to conduct surveillance and in order to do reconnaissance and to identify where they are.
We're due for a break, and I'd like to bring back Group Captain Sadiq into this because it has come to where we need to extract and beg him for his expertise in his areas. Quickly, if you can tell us, some of these bandit elements, we understand and we know and we heard that the Boko Haram had infiltrated them. and they are using them to carry out their attacks in parts of the northwestern region of the country. And in fact, that they are now multi-faced, meaning that they are not just one group, they are different groups, all scattered around. The ones operating in parts of Sokoto, the ones operating in Plateau, the ones in fact, we do understand that, in fact, some of them are even aliens. They are not Nigerians. So, I mean, how easy do you want to coordinate or identify these people? Because the first step to be able to tackle this is to identify who you are fighting against, isn't it?
No, sure. And I mean, you are right that there have been elements of bandits that have been infiltrated by Boko Haram. Of course, there were bandit elements that claim to have relationships with Boko Haram, or in whose case Boko Haram claimed to have the relationship with them that later we found out that it was just a marriage of convenience for a particular period of time, and that did not continue. But one bandit in particular, Dogojide, himself claims to be fighting the kind of war Boko Haram is fighting, and he claims to have a relationship with Al-Qaeda. He says his relationship has now transcended Shekau and that he has a relationship with Al-Qaeda. And we know that he's operating in Zamfara, in Katsina, and some other areas of the Northwest. But there is also evidence, some evidence that Al-Qaeda fighters, ISIS fighters from the Sahel have been able to carry out attacks in the Northwest, including in places like Sokoto, where they have claimed attacks in the year 2019, for example. And then we know that there are Boko Haram cells. These are not bandits infiltrated by Boko Haram. These are Boko Haram cells resident in Zamfara. For example, we know that Ansaru has a cell in Zamfara. We know Ansaru has a cell in Kaduna and in Nasarawa State. But also the ISIS allied faction of Boko Haram, ISWAP, has claims to have a cell in Kogi State, and it is from Kogi State that they are launching some of the attacks in Kogi, the attack we saw in Oshun and other places. And so there are bandit elements, bandit terrorists in the Northwest. There are Boko Haram faction of Ansaru who are allied to Al-Qaeda, and there are Boko Haram elements of who are allied to the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, that's ISIS, which calls itself locally as ISWAP. But we also then have bandit elements like Dogojide, who claim to have some relationship with the extremist groups. It is important to identify them, but when it comes to military effort, Sheun, what the people of the Northwest and the North Central want is to live in peace. And therefore, it is for the federal government to use the might it has on all of them, because all of them are a threat to Nigeria. They want to destroy Nigeria, and we should destroy them as soon as we can. All right.
I mean, there's nothing that gives me more joy than destroy those who want to destroy this country. I mean, in terms of these violent elements, they've troubled our people, killed innocent Nigerians, messed up our economy, turned our country into a place that people don't want to visit. We need to clear them out. And if this government is going to do that, let's look further into how they can achieve it. Group Captain Sadiq Shehu is still with us on the program tonight, and he will give us an insight into how we can achieve that with these new service chiefs. Stay with me, everyone. We'll be right back. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. What went down in the presidential villa today? What Senator Sani Yerima, who is a former governor of Zamfara State, said about negotiating with bandits. There is a popular saying that we don't negotiate with terrorists. Well, my guests tonight have called them terrorists. So if they are terrorists, can we negotiate with them on leaving and allowing our poor people to breathe and allowing them to live? I mean, what is the way out? Group Captain Sadiq Shehu is an experienced military officer, retired, and Mr. Bulama Bukati, a lawyer and an extremist scholar on extreme and violent tendencies in part of Africa. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time. Let me come to you now, Group Captain. Give us an understanding. You have your doubt about this issue of negotiation, but the fact remains that if we are to clear them out, how easy can we do that?
It's not easy, but it's doable. So just like Mr. Bulama said, I really agree that negotiation is not the way out for criminals. Criminals who prey on their own people. Rather, I will align with him in first what we need to do. I have jotted like 4 or 5 things that we need to do. It's not as if the past service chiefs or the past government have not tried. But unfortunately, while we have, we can say, appreciable and demonstrable success in the Northeast, we've not been able to have that level of success in the Northwest and the North Central. So what I would tell this government, and by implication, the security forces that we just saw on the screen, is to increase the effort. Increase the effort by trying to man our borders, because we are talking of people infiltrating, trying to manage the inflow of arms and ammunition, which is very, very vital to this, to these bandits to operate. So we have to.
That is the air that makes them. That is a fuel that allows them to operate.
Yes. Increase those efforts. Increase the mobility, and reduce the reaction time of our troops to arrive whenever there is any reported incident. These are areas that the current security system must work on.
Let me ask you.
Yes.
And so there are. I've visited some very highly classified places in the world, in the US and even the UK, and those people in those places will tell you that this particular facility, it takes about 5 minutes if there is any breach to get a number of soldiers or military to come on the ground. Where is the closest military base to Zamfara? Do you know?
Well, we have military bases in the Gusau, in the capital itself.
So,
and there are also some forward operational bases in some towns.
Yes. Unlike a place, some other places in the world where you can travel around the country for several hours from one point to the other, Nigeria, I know that easily between Gusau and any part of Zamfara, you should be able to move around in less than 2 hours. So how easy is it to tactically, using the air wing of our military, to be able to move in when there is a reported incident? So
this is why I talked about, you see, the fight with bandits in that general area is a fight for very small mobile units, very mobile with communication systems. Now, if you look at that terrain, there are even seasonal rivers. There are routes where only the bandits know they can take their motorcycle or by road. If a soldier goes with the hillocks that we need they normally used to move, they may not be able to move. APC may not be able to move there. So these are the kind of things we need mobility assets. So all terrain mobility assets.
Group Captain,
yes.
let me give you. You have operated a military aircraft, and a lot of the time when you don't have eyes on the site, you have eyes on the ground at the tactical control center, where they tell you this is where you go. And we've seen, for example, the pictures that came out of the operation on Osama bin Laden from the U.S., and you saw the president who was also sitting in the room. They were watching and monitoring, and live are able, by satellite, able to see the movement of the terrorists. You see them in those green colors and movement. So do we even have those kind of capacity in our military?
We have the basics of such capacity. But with due respect, we are not up to the level of the American forces that we can do this live coverage of operations where the commander-in-chief or the president will be watching where we are going. But it is not that it is not doable. These are the areas we have to look at. Because what normally happens in most of these attacks, we find that our response time is too long. It's too long for so many reasons. The terrain, we do not have the mobility assets. So our troops, whether it is police, whether it is military, they end up arriving after these people have caused havoc and they have
You know where they have exposed our military is the attack at the prisons here in the border of Abuja, in Kuje prison. And they carried out that attack, and you wonder that for a prison facility like that, there should be nothing less than, not more than 10 minutes of response action from whatever base. And they did that, and they went on bikes, some of them on foot, and they went outside of Kuje. In fact, residents of Kuje said they saw them moving out. They were attacked. You could hear the gunshot on the attack and all of that. These are what eyewitnesses said. I thought we had NICOMSAT, a satellite that Nigeria hosted, helped by, that China helped us with. Are those not, don't they have the capacity to be able to help us to have eyes on the ground where these violent attackers operate?
Now, to successfully, deploy to any area that you need in time, there are several things you have to have. First, the alerting system. And the alert system must be also linked with the reaction time. With the reaction force. So it is something of 24/7. It is something of having mobility because, okay, you are alerted. Do you have mobility access to reach there? That is the first part.
Are we equipped now with our aircraft? Do we have the wherewithal?
You see, when you say aircraft, again, when you look at the fight we are doing in the Northeast, it is not every kind of aircraft that will be able to answer for that. What I see here is an operation that will need helicopters. Plenty of helicopters that can reach, they can land even on a rough terrain. If it is dropping soldiers, they are there. If it is just for an aircraft to overfly, well, he can overfly and take pictures for you and give you this. But then, if it is not linked with the reaction forces that can move on time, and the reaction time is a function of equipment, it's a function of training. Special forces train. They set a limit for them. We want to reach from point A to point B in 30 minutes if there is a response. It's something that you do year in, year out, year in, year out, even when there is no problem. The forces that we hear responded in 10, 30 minutes is not something of, it's something that takes training. You might train for a whole 3 years. You never had the opportunity to put that into practice, but it's never there. In the very early, I think late 2019 or 2020, in the whole of Britain, by the way they operate, you can never see an armed policeman. But when one day, a terrorist arrived in one place with a knife or something like that, it took less than 30 minutes.
For them to swoop on
for troops that were, policemen that were normally unarmed. For suddenly 30 minutes, you see armed troops and they arrive and they neutralize the guy. But we only saw that. That is the front end of the action. The back end of the action is people that have been training, that have been equipped, year in, year out, day in, day out,
waiting for that
thing to happen. So, honest, this is the area we need to.
If you were to tell the president something now, to show that there is a new sheriff in town, there is a way that you operate. I remember growing up. As soon as you hear your father's honking, the sound of the car, wherever you're playing, you run back to the compound and you take cover so that it doesn't catch you outside. There's that air of there's a new person in the saddle. What do you think that the president can do in terms of bombardment, in terms of military action, that will show signal that there is no joke?
Now, being a former military officer myself, and also the fact that I've interacted with other militaries across the world, sometimes there is a military culture that constrains us. The Nigerian military culture, by training, it frowns at a military man telling a political leader, I don't have this, I don't have that, I don't have this, I don't have that. This is one thing I call on the new service chiefs. They are not buying these things with their money. If we want them to react as we are discussing now, within 30 minutes or within 1 hour, for example, now, they could start training that, okay, in the past, we have been responding 10 hours, or we want to cut it to 3 hours. What do we need to cut it to 3 hours? Please, they should summon the courage. I'm happy to hear the president saying that he will support them. The job of the military man is to tell the political master what he doesn't have or what he needs to do the job. I am calling on this service never to shy away. This issue of, for cameras, they might come and say the president has done everything for us, but when they are doing one-on-one with him, please let them tell him. Because sometimes that conversation doesn't happen. It's covered under, no, the president has been very helpful, he has done everything for us. Well, you might do that for the cameras. But when you are with your commander-in-chief, that is what you are supposed to do. Tell him what you don't have. Because what we are asking them to do is something that will require training, it's something that requires equipment which we may not have, or even if we have, maybe we need more of it. Because with due respect, if we are looking at the expanse of Nigeria, at where this is, still, I would say, despite the efforts of the outgoing regime in buying equipment, our armed forces are still under-equipped. Because the gap before Boko Haram came, the gap is so big. It's so wide. You get the point? It will take a lot of effort. So I want honest conversation between the military people. This is why I talk of culture. In the European culture, the military, just now we are talking the British Chief of Defense Staff, he's going on retirement. Why? The Prime Minister said he's going, or is it the Minister of Defense? He said he's going to cut number of troops. And he told him, look, if you cut this number of troops, I will not be able to do what you're telling me to do. And he left. And he's going to leave. You get the point? We don't have that culture. I'm not asking for I am going. But please have the,
all right.
you know, the
I want us to bring home because part of what the president also did was to meet with the service chief, which you have touched on. And I want us to bring home the conversation now. Mr. Bukati, going forward, and I asked the group captain here, if the president were to do something in line with global best practices of how military operations are being conducted, and in this kind of situation that Nigeria finds itself, for us to silence for a long time or permanently these violent and extremists in our country that are operating and turn our northwestern region of the country into a place that you cannot easily travel to. Imagine. People, are fearful of driving from Abuja to Kaduna. Kaduna that used to be a commercial and a trade hub of the northwestern region of the country to the capital of the country. That's disgraceful, isn't it? What must the president do? Now, because we moved from one man who was a former military leader who became a civilian leader, with a lot of Nigerians thought that with him in the saddle, he's going to clear all of these problems. But what should President Tinubu be focusing on majorly to address this problem, from your own point of view?
What President Tinubu should focus on is delivery. Nigerians are tired of seeing meetings with service chiefs in Abuja and with statements to the media after meetings. What Nigerians want to see is results. They want to see delivery on the ground. And the way President Tinubu will deliver is, number one, he has put his finger on it when he talked about synergy amongst our service chiefs. The major thing that was lacking under President Buhari was lack of synergy and coordination between the different parts of the Nigerian army, as well as the other security and law enforcement agencies we have in the country. Sheun, as you know, there are 17 different security and law enforcement agencies in Nigeria, and each of them has a fundamental role to play in fighting the bandit terrorists, as well as Boko Haram and the Eastern Security Network terrorists. Now, but that cannot happen until they coordinate and synergize and plan together and implement their plans together. The way to do that, as President Tinubu said, is to call for synergy, but calling for synergy alone cannot do it. What you need to do is to institutionalize synergy, institutionalize coordination. And the way to do that is to build an institution or a government department, or empower an existing government department that will become a one-stop center for all our security and law enforcement agencies to come together, plan together, and implement and review together. Someone can say that's the duty of the National Security Advisor. Part of the duty of the National Security Advisor is to coordinate between the law enforcement agencies, but he can only do that at the highest level. What you need is coordination between implementing level officers in the military, in the Navy, in the police, in the NDLEA and other places. Sheun, two other points I thought are important to make. The question of logistics and response time is important, but what is more important is for our security agencies to take the fight to the bandits, to the terrorists inside the bush. So you don't even allow them the breathing space for them to attack communities before you start talking about responding. Take the fight to them. The best defense is to attack. Don't continue to allow them to put us in the defensive. We should put them in the defensive by attacking them. And I think that's very important for our military and law enforcement agencies to do.
Yeah. Let's bring this home now. You just have about 60 seconds. Your closing remark, Group Captain.
My closing remarks, like I said, I wish the new security team a very good lesson. Personally, I know almost all of them on the military side. Each of them.
Were they your juniors?
Yes, they were.
Oh, yeah.
Each of them came with a reputation of performance. And here, I congratulate the president for picking them. When you are rating officers, you rate them within their peers. Within the peers where these officers were taken, they are probably, if not the best, among the best. So they have a reputation. If they live up the reputation, we know them. Each of them has performed in the field. They are also, academically gifted, because what you need now in modern security is, a scholar soldier who combines both the academic side and the field. So they are equipped for that. So I hope they will dig in. They will talk honestly with their commander-in-chief and tell him what the situation is, what they lack. But finally, while we are talking of security, we always look at the executive. If you look at the Constitution, almost all the actions to support security that the president can do, he shares it with National Assembly. If our National Assembly members do not move up their game as to what President Tinubu is going, with due respect, anything that he does will be lost. So that's just what I have to say.
Always a pleasure having you, Group Captain, with your honest and very in-depth analysis of this issue. Thank you so much. For the sake of our country, we need to keep this country together and secure. Thank you so much, my very good friend, Bulama Bukati, who is a scholar in all of these issues. Thank you so much indeed for your time tonight. Well, that's how much we can serve you tonight on the program. Many thanks, everyone, for being part of the program. I'll see you tomorrow again at 7 p.m. I'm sure Kimale. Good night.